Hey there guys, TC Made with TC Gaming. I wanted to put this video out real quick because it was asked for not too long ago. I did a video on ALS version 4 community, and somebody asked if I could do one on ALS for the refactored version. Refactored is actually pretty easy to set up. I'm in the current version of 5.4, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this. I'm going to create a third-person project. And then once we get the third-person project in here, we'll bring ALS Refactored into it, just show you how to set it up pretty quick. So I'm going to go in here, create a new third-person game. I'm going to call this, let me put this on the, I don't know why, but my default doesn't have that in there. I'll call it ALSv4 underscore RF for Refactored. And this can be a blueprint project, doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and create it. Give it a second to launch that there. And then what we want to do is we'll let that run, and we can go out to the internet and we can go to the GitHub for 6Z for ALS Refactored. And you can find that just by searching for ALSv4 Refactored. It'll pop up. This is like the #1 hit for that. And if you've never used GitHub before, there's branches you can go to. Normally the current branch is the main branch, and it'll tell you, whatever the versions are and all the different controls down here, what plugin goes with which version of Unreal. So if you were working on an older version, you could do the same thing, just going backwards here. But the one for 5.4 is not out yet, but I don't think it's going to be that much different, so we'll just go ahead and put it in there anyway. We're going to go to code and just download the zip file. Over here, that'll launch on my side. Now I already have ALS Refactored main in here, so I'm going to get a 1 around mine. Yours won't have that. We'll go down here and we'll find it. And all we're going to do is extract this. I'll just extract it to ALS Refactored main 1. And we'll scroll over here, and that should have showed up here. And that other project was just on my root D drive. These are in download. So I'm going to go to D drive here. And there's my ALSv4 RF folder. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to right click and say new folder and call it plugins. And I'm actually going to go and close this project. We can just launch it real quick to make sure everything's fine. It is. Hit escape, shift escape, and get out of there. And create this plugins folder. And what we want to do is we want to take that download that we just had for our ALS plugin refactored. I'm going to go show you where this is here. We want to go from this folder, not the one from the top. We want to go in one and get this ALS refactored main. So anything that's the folder above where the config, content, resources, source, all that is, we want to go one level above that. So we're going to right click this and copy it. We're going to go back to our project where the plugins folder was created, right click and hit paste. And now what we want to do is go back up one level to our ALS version 4 RFU project and just launch this. And it's going to tell you it was built for 5.3. You want to attempt to load it anyway. We're going to say yes. It's going to tell you it's got a couple things that need to be rebuilt. We're going to say yes and just allow it to build that. Give it a couple of minutes. In order for this to build properly, I'm pretty sure you're going to have Visual Studio, the latest version of Visual Studio in there. And in Visual Studio, there is a section when you install it to make sure that you have code editing available for game development. And Unreal Engine is listed in there. I did videos on that in the past. If you're having trouble just searching there, I'm pretty sure you'll find one of the ones in mine for Visual Studio. But basically, this will launch. We can just give it a minute to build out here. Show the log, it's just basically compiling and building. And then after it gets done doing that, it should launch the file. And then I'll just show you real quick how to get it up and running. And then we'll fix this warning that you'll get every time you launch it with the 5.3 warning. All right. Any second, and we should have a project. There we go. So this is the newest version of 5.4 that just came out. And, like I said, you can do this with older versions as well. In order to see everything in here, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you go to your settings. I have my content browser pulled up and everything docked over here. You go to settings and make sure that you turn on engine and plugin content to show those. so that when you look over here under plugins, you're going to see Advanced Locomotion System refactored content in here. This is where all of your stuff is for your character and your blueprints and everything else. Okay. So now what we want to do is if I just hit play right now, you're just going to have your original third person program or project that you created, right? So what you want to do is you want to go to world settings, and under world settings, you're going to switch this out to a different game mode, which is going to be ALS game mode. I think let me see if that's actually maybe not going to pull yeah, it does. If you switch it to ALS game mode, that's going to pull the ALS character and HUD and all that stuff in there and the player controller. And just like that, you have ALS version 4 refactored, and you can jump up on things just like normal. This one actually has, if you look, there's little silhouette footsteps there, little decals or markers on the ground for your feet, which is pretty cool. All your controls should work. Alt puts you in slow walk. Control crouches you. Shift will cause you to dodge roll. If you come up to an object and you press forward, I'm hitting W and Shift. That'll still roll. I'm sorry, W and spacebar will jump you up to climb. And when you come off of a steep, surface at a speed, pretty sure he rolls. Yeah, I'm holding Shift and W as I jump off of that, and if it's too far out or whatever, he'll actually dodge roll. But you can see the IK all works. Characters there, no problem. So we can hit escape on that. I hit F11 to minimize my window. We'll just do a save all. And now I'm going to fix this error for you out here. When we go back out to the project, to this U project, right click on this and you can say edit with like Notepad, or, I use Notepad++. You say edit with Notepad++. And over here where it says engine association, you should be able to put that in there. It does say 5.4 here. I don't know if that clears that warning then. No. Hold on 1 second here. All right, so it looks like if you want to clear that 5.3 warning, I guess what I did is I went into plugins, into this folder, and I went to the ALS.u plugin. If you right click on this and edit with something like Notepad or Notepad++, you can come down here and change the engine version from 5.3 to 5.4. And that, once you save that and start it back up, it'll take that warning out of there. So that seems to be the way that I did it without any impact to it. I'll show you if I run it now with 5.4 in there. It should just launch up with no warning about it being built for 5.3. The newer version, I'm sure, will be out pretty soon. Those guys are pretty on top of whenever a new engine version is released to get the newest one out there. But again, that's the quick way to get everything in there. And then all that, all the other stuff that you do in here pretty much works the same way. If you look at these blueprints, this is kind of what we did in some of the other versions. You have a mesh in here, which is your ALS character. And then there's another one called the overlay skeletal mesh. And so what you could do is you can change it so that the character that you're visually seeing is this overlay skeletal mesh. And as long as it's the same size character and built on the Epic skeleton framework, it'll perfectly fit in there. And the Anim class can be a very simple blueprint to run that. And I'll show you this real quick. There's two different ways to do it. First way is if you're on the mesh, you go over here and find that mesh. Right click on the mesh and say skeleton, find skeleton. And in this case, you have SK_ALS. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get an asset that I know is built on the Epic skeleton and typically works pretty well with this. Let's go in here and we'll go by characters. And there's a knight that they had released, this Gothic knight, a million years ago. I use this all the time because it tends to work. And since I'm going to go near ALSv4 show all projects. There's your v4 refactored. We're going to dumb this down to version 5.3. Add this guy to the project. All right, so Gothic Knight, G Knight is in here. We can go right into his mesh. He's got a couple different meshes. I'm going to grab one that is full body. They also make parts on here. I don't know what's going on with that. That's actually strange. Let's pick a different one. I haven't used this guy in 5.4, so maybe maybe he doesn't work right. So SK Gothic Knight VB. I'm going to right click on him and say skeleton, assign skeleton. And if you don't see SKLS right here, you can go down here and make sure that you're showing your plugin content and engine content on this selector. If you don't have that on, you won't see these plugins folders. But anyway, I'm just going to reassign him to be on SKALS. And so now if I go Gothic Knight underscore VB, I can go into my ALS character, go into the blueprint, go to the mesh, and say Gothic Knight VB. If I look at the viewport, you should see that he fits on there perfectly fine. And I won't have any blue mesh guy. You've just changed your character, and he should work perfectly fine in here. He'll do all the stuff the other guy does. He'll leave the footprints. His hands will be perfectly placed. He'll do your dive rolls. The only thing I didn't check on here is that's the slow motion, combination of slow motion and ragdoll there. Z puts him in slow motion. Then X ragdolls him. And it looks like he ragdolls and gets back up fine. So you can also check the overlays barrel. Okay, now he doesn't have, I'm glad I did that. He doesn't have the same sockets in here because he's on a different skeleton frame. No, actually he's on the same skeleton frame, so he would have to have, why wouldn't that work? Alright, so let's do this. This is the other way to do this, and I did have a problem with this version doing this, now that I think about it. Number 11 here, go back here. So let's do this instead. Let's put our mesh back to our ALS guy. Alright, SKM ALS up here. And then in the overlay skeletal mesh, let's go ahead and use the one that we just put in for the Gothic Knight. Gothic Knight B. And for his anim class, it would be the same thing. It would be the, I think this guy's using ABALS, right? Yeah. Now let's compile. I'm going to leave this on there with the blue guy, and I'll show you, I think, how we can fix that in a second. It's not showing that mesh. So under overlay skeletal mesh, search for visibility. He is visible. Check for hidden in game. That's not on. Why is that not showing? Skeletal mesh. I forgot rule number 1 of the ALS project. So when I switched those characters over to the other skeleton and then tried to assign them in there and it wasn't giving me the sockets for the barrel and stuff, I thought maybe I had done something different or whatever. So I went and I downloaded the other character that's in the free thing for the modular character. You guys, if you've been around a while, you probably remember this guy here. So I went and I grabbed a copy of him, and I had the same issue. So once I restarted it, I was able now to, if I hit the Q, now I can go out and I grab the barrel, and the barrel goes to the right spot, the box goes to the right spot, so on and so forth. So I think it was just a byproduct of me grabbing the wrong thing there. So these all work now. And the only thing I did when I swapped over the skeleton, you want to restart or whatever, but when you come in here under the mesh, you'll just put that whatever mesh you're using that you swapped over on here, and you'll do the anim class. Then the same thing for the overlay skeletal mesh. I don't know if you need both of these in here to make that work. We could probably just check real quick. We'll clear this one and tell this one that we want none. It should stay on there. Should be the same guy. Should have no problems there. I don't think you need that second one if you're doing it this way, right? Because it's just one guy using the same anim class. All right. The other one is if you have a retarget character that you want to use. Let me see if the knight works now. Let's go back to the regular mesh, and we'll go to knight. we had Gothic Knight VB, I think was our guy. So let's see what happens with him now that we've rebooted. Now let's try, now that I've switched it, let's try quick restart here and see if that fixes it. And if it doesn't, then what we'll do is this other thing I think should work. But I haven't tried all these things in ALS version 4 refactored. I've done most of them in the community version. Let's just try this out of the bag again here. Okay, still same problem with the barrel. So let's something different about this guy from what it used to be. He's not working correctly in version 5.4. Let's get rid of him. Clear this out. We'll put our regular ALS character back in this ordinary mesh spot here. And let's just see if this other method would work. So let's go to the knight again. We'll go to the meshes for the knight. And this is the skeleton, SK Gothic Knight skeleton that should have been on here. I'll go to skeleton, assign skeleton. We'll just type in Gothic and accept. We'll put him back on his own skeleton. Now, one of the things that they do in the new version is you can go and pull the skeleton up and go in here to asset details for compatible skeletons. You could go to the one for ALS and say it's compatible with this one, or you can come to this one and say this is compatible with the ALS one. So if you went in here and searched for ALS, and you said I'm compatible with this ALS skeleton, what it should do is it should allow this guy now in the asset browser to have access to all of the things that were available. Preview mesh, Gothic Knight, if they're compatible, then all that should work, right? So we can go through here and see all of the different items on here. We'd have to, I should have said, sorry, preview mesh. And isn't there a apply somewhere? Usually it pops up with an apply. Otherwise, you got to flip this preview mesh over. But again, they should work because they're listed as compatible assets now. So if that is the case, you may be able to simply go now and say, take this Gothic Knight. Let me pull him up by himself again. We'll go to details, preview scenes. Let's go to animations right here somewhere. There's all those different anims. But again, it's not on the preview. Let's go to that blueprint again. And let's go back to the mesh. Gothic Knight VB. And even though he's on a different skeleton, if that skeleton's compatible, then it's trying to animate using ABALS. I don't know if this will work this way. He shows up, but I don't know if this socket's going to work yet. Let's see, I don't understand why that's not working. But again, it could just be a problem with this character because the other character works fine. So every once in a while, when versions change, something will happen that a character has to be updated by the users. If I would have done this in 5.3, it would probably work out just fine. In fact, if we want to, let's just do it. I mean, video's a little long, but you guys can stop watching whenever you want to, obviously. What we'll do over here is we'll go library, launch a 5.3.2 project. Just to see, I'm just curious now, so this is like bonus content. So we'll go to games, third person character, backslash on the D. We'll go ALSv4, and let's go RF underscore, and we'll say, let's do 43 for, or I'm sorry, 53, 5.3. So we'll call it RF53. For 5.3 version. I'm just curious now. You know, when you're trying to do a tutorial video, or not even a tutorial video, but like an explanation video, and something doesn't work out, there's two things you could do. One is you could act like everything worked out fine, cut it out, start a new video, make it work, you know, or whatever. Or you could just go through it and try and troubleshoot it, which sometimes helps other people even more. So I'm leaving these in here, even though they're kind of like a blooper reel. All right, so same thing. We would go in here. Now we have our engine content and our plugins. We need to go and add this into ALSrf53. So we'll close this. We'll go find our folder. I know that my stuff was created at D. There's 53. And under my downloads, I have the ALS Refactored main one. Again, we'll go in here and get it from this now. I didn't change any of these things yet. And here I changed them in the other copy. So let's go copy here. Go back to D. Go into 53, right click and say new folder, plugins. And we'll paste this in. Go back here to 53 and launch it and let it build everything. Same way we did last time. Okay, and while that's building, I'm going to go over here to the library. Go back down here to characters and find the Gothic Knight. And I'm going to add him to ALSv4 RF53. Add that to the project while that's in there. Only takes a second. And again, this is just a curiosity thing for myself. Should be launching any second. Okay, so once that all gets done compiling and everything, do the same thing we did last time. We'll go into our game mode override. We'll go to ALS game mode, which should bring over all of our characters that we wanted. And, you know, again, just check things real quick. All right, so he looks fine. Now this, again, just was curiosity on my part to find out if the Gothic Knight in this version in 53 works differently. So again, we had Gothic Knight VB, right click, skeleton, assign skeleton. Again, with the show content for plugin and engine here. Go to SKALS plugin version. Hit accept. Save all. Move into a file, save up here, save all. And let's go to the ALS character. And turn this into Knight VB. Pile. And there's our guy. No barrel in his hand. So maybe this is broken. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm gonna restart it one more time just to make sure. But it looks like something's working differently in there. Now we'll try one more thing. This comes back up. Whatever. ALSR 53. Should have already launched. I have two copies of it here in a second. All right, so since that one didn't work the way we wanted it to, we'll go back here. We'll put this back on the ALS mannequin. We'll go back to our Gothic Knight mesh. Assign the skeleton back to Gothic Knight. And things should be pretty much back the way we started. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take this guy here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say actually right click out here and say animation blueprint. And for the skeleton, I'll pick the Gothic Knight skeleton and create, let's just call it G Knight ABP. And oh, what's going on out here? Why it did it on the... Oh, because the preview on the skeleton is that. Okay. That threw me for a loop there for a second. There was a note in here for pose to transfer a pose over at runtime. Let me just grab that real quick. I'm looking for something called retarget pose from mesh. And we'll just do that right there. Pile. And you have to name the mesh up here. In the details. Let's see if I can just do regular RTG mannequin there. So none of those are actually going to work the right way. Alright, so the one thing we have to do then is we have to go and get our Gothic Knight guy onto a control rig. So since we made this as a third-person project, under characters, mannequins for UE4, there is a rig in here already. So you can get IKUE4 mannequin. I'm going to take and drag this into the G Knight folder. Copy here. I'll go in here. I'm going to call this IK underscore G Knight. And what I'll do is I'll change the preview mesh to Gothic Knight VB. Ah, I'm missing some bones. So maybe that's why the other one has some problems. Maybe it's not compatible anymore. So there's the rig. Now we can go and say animation retargeting IK retargeter, and we call this IKRT underscore G Knight. And the general idea with this is that we want to take it, this guy in here, and our source IK rig would be the V4 mannequin, and our target IK rig would be the G Knight. We can do an offset here, spread these guys out, use the right thing. 150 over here should move to the side. We're going to have to build a retarget asset for this guy too, I guess. And this is really not working the way I thought it would. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, because this is so convoluted and jacked up, I think that it's just that G Knight character's got some other weird stuff going on. I'm going to go back here to the characters. I'm going to go to mannequin UE4 rigs. I'm going to grab that IK UE4 mannequin rig again. I'm going to take it to the... I'll take it to the ALS folder. I'll copy it here. Go to ALS. We'll call this IK underscore ALS. And so we're going to just do the same thing. I'm just going to switch this guy to the ALS guy. This is a quick way to make a rig. You just copy the rig in there and reassign the bones. Typically this will work out for you because they're all based on the same thing anyway. We'll do an animation, right click animation, retargeting IK retargeter. IKRT underscore ALS, which I don't think matters because I'm not building that rig there. So now that I have this source rig, this is kind of unnecessary. The thing that is the same as the thing I was building up here a minute ago in G-Night. So now that I have the one for ALS, I could put the ALS rig in here, and you see it immediately pulls over all of his animations, and everything that I do in here should tell me how that all works. So, right, looks like his hand was a little jacked up in that one. And I think it must be that this guy doesn't have. He doesn't have some of the stuff I thought he had on him, which is probably some IK stuff, you know. So there's the rigs. That all works, and we have an IK RT for G-Night. So now that we have that, if I go back into the G-Night meshes, that's where I'd put this ABP. And now from here, we can pick the actual G-Night retargeter, and it should clear that error. And I'm not even sure this is going to work, but this is what you would do in most other projects. So if you go up here now, there's your mesh, and I'm going to say, I don't know what's going on with his overlay mesh, so I'm going to build my own. I'm just going to say add skeletal mesh, and he's a child of this mesh. Okay, that mesh has that character and the anim on it. I'm going to say hide that and make this skeletal mesh. I'm going to rename this to, my character, or whatever you want to call it. In my character, I'm going to say I want the Gothic Knight BB. And again, he's static now, right? But his anim class, we made an ABP for the Knight. G-Night ABP. And see, the way that this rig works is it automatically adopts whatever the parent is and translates that animation over there at runtime. So let's just see if this works first. I've got him there. Let's grab the barrel. Now the barrel's up over his shoulder. Okay. Same thing. I should be able to do bow, hands tied. All this stuff should work now. Torch, injured, right? All this stuff should be fine now. And his IK should all work with his hands, his feet. He should roll. He'll leave footprints behind. All his time dilation. Let's do his ragdoll. Ragdoll works. All right, so the reason that that's all happening now is if I add my own and everything, it's going to be better. So I'm going to go to mesh now, and let's go to visible. And we want to take this off of being visible in the game, or visible at all, really. And then under tick, we want to make sure this says always tick pose and refresh bones. And what that'll do is, even though it's not being rendered, it's still passing the information on to the child character. I'm going to hit play on there, and everybody should still be animating. And the barrel still works. And everything else, like I said, it's all working the way that it should, and we're just passing information on from one character to the other. And we're using the ALS refactored version in 5.3. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Everything I did in 5.4, seeing how this character is broken, everything I did in the earlier part in the 5.4 video probably would work using this version of creating the IK rig and the retargeter and using the animation blueprint node to pass that information over. Sorry, this video is a little bit all over the place. Hopefully you get something out of it. Again, some people find more value in the problems and solving the problems and working through them just to see all the different techniques, as opposed to a video that's pristine and looks like everything went well. which in this case we clearly see that it didn't. The first part's good for the installation. The last part's good for troubleshooting how to get your characters to work if they're not working the way that you think they should. Again, my name's TC Made with TC Gaming. I'll be putting out some more content, and hopefully you guys found some value in this video. Again, sorry it's all over the place, but we'll catch you in a future upcoming video. Take care.